awesome. That is exactly where we are. Kind of. Greater Houston.
Today
Large.
I'm in San Antonio.
That's right. That's right. Peggy, I'm glad to see you. You're all the way from Pennsylvania. I'm glad you're here. Okay, well, we are going to go ahead and get started right at 9 a.m. So I'm glad everyone is here. Welcome. I'm excited to have you here. We're going to have a great webinar, especially designed for grant professionals just like you. Whether you're just starting your journey, you're in grants, or you're seasoned, today's topic is going to be incredible and full of value for everyone. Before we dive in, I want to make sure we're set up for an engaging, interactive session. If you're new to LinkedIn Live, don't worry. It's very easy to use. There's a comment section right there on the left that you can drop your comments or questions in at any time. There'll be a live Q&A at the end, and we can answer some of those questions for you. Again, I'm going to kind of drop that one question again if you didn't hear it earlier. In the chat, if you guys can let us know what's one communication challenge you're facing right now in your grant writing and management. And we might be able to kind of figure out where that conversation is for our webinar today. Awesome. Great. We're seeing a lot of engagement in the chat, so feel free to drop any info in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So today's webinar is all about mastering communication. Mastering communication strategies for grant writing and management. By the end of the webinar, you'll have actionable insights that you can apply immediately to improve your grant communication strategies and achieve better results. So before we get started, let me remind you, if you have any questions at any point, don't worry, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we'll be able to answer those at the end. So I'm excited to introduce to you today's speaker, someone who really understands the ins and outs of grant writing and funding strategies. So she is the president of Boyd Grants and has helped countless organizations secure the funding they need to make an impact. Please join me in welcoming Allison Boyd.
Y'all, normally I am in the greater Houston area. Today I am in San Antonio getting ready for a conference. So you're kind of joining me on my adventure today. So today we are going to jump into communication solutions. And let me tell you, over my 20 plus years of experience, I have went from a solo one-man team to working with a whole team of people to managing the project of different subject matter experts and things like that. And let me tell you, one thing that makes a project work is clear communication. And so today we're going to talk about different ways, tools, things like that that can help you with that as you develop your grant. So what will you learn today? Today, we're going to cover the importance of effective communication in grant writing. We're also going to talk about the how that impacts the time it takes to write your grants and the quality of your proposals. We're also going to cover the key challenges faced by your teams. We're going to cover practical tools and strategies to improve communication. And then last, we're going to talk about some best practices for maintaining collaboration and accountability. So as we're going through, if you feel like you have some great best practices that I missed, or you're just like, for the good of the group, we'd like you all to know this is what we do. Please go ahead and share that, and we'll try to address those in the Q&A. But we are excited to bring this to you. It's something that I think is beneficial for the entire writing team, development team, management team. Without strong communication, we will have breakdowns along the way, which are going to cause your projects to not work as well, right? Okay, so why does communication matter? Well, when you begin, collaboration between writers, researchers, and stakeholders is so important. Grant writing is a team effort that requires input from multiple parties. Sometimes it feels like it's a solo sport, but the reality is you might be the one who's actually writing, or you might be the one who's actually doing the reporting, but there are others who help get you to the end result, right? So we're going to talk about the whole process as a team effort. We're not going to focus on the fact that usually it's one person doing a lot of the work, but know that you can adjust these strategies across the way depending on the size and level of intensity of your team. Okay, so the fun little image on the side really talks about the different, what team members are usually involved in, kind of your core activities, and what some of your connection points are going to be for that communication. And this is kind of from start to finish. So whether it's beginning of writing the project to submission, or whether it's beginning of the management of the project to submission. Creating internal controls to help guide that process is going to be imperative to the success of the work that you do. Okay, so back to collaboration between writers, researchers, and stakeholders. So your writers, they often craft the narratives, the proposals, the budgets, the reports, things like that. So that their role is clearly defined. Researchers can have many different roles and many different definitions to what that is. Researchers can provide data, they can provide evidence for needs assessments, they can actually be the ones finding the funding opportunities, and that researcher could also be the writer. It just kind of depends on how your team is set up. Then you've got your stakeholders. These individuals or organizations contribute to the larger organizational goals, strategic priorities, and just additional feedback along the way of the actual proposal and the reporting. Clear communication across all of these team members are going to ensure alignment across these roles by helping the team produce cohesive and compelling grant applications. Next, we have to meet strict deadlines. Deadlines are not optional for us. We don't get to push things along the way. Like, there is a finite time, right, to write a grant. Yes, there's rolling deadlines for foundation grants, but man, when you get into some of the larger foundations and then the government grants, there is a deadline, and that does not change. So if we mess up because of communication strategies amongst our team, we still have to have an end result by the time we're ready to submit, right? So without effective communication, you're going to have bottlenecks along the way, right? So effective communication will help you avoid these bottlenecks in the reviews, the writing, and the approval stages. You're going to maintain accountability for each task that you have to complete along the way, because a grant, whether it's pre-award or post-award, is a culmination of very many tasks that have to be accomplished along the way. In order to make sure that you meet those deadlines, right, you're going to ensure that all members are aware of their deadlines and their specific responsibilities. So in our grant writing, right, we often have what we consider a timeline or a work plan or something like that, that it already assigns roles and responsibilities. Essentially, you're doing the same thing. And we're going to get further into that in like a few slides. But think of, I said this a while back on someone else's podcast that I was sitting on. Sometimes our lives can be chunked out like how we write a grant narrative, right? So if you're planning your business budget, well, how would you get started? Well, you would start just like you plan a grant program budget, and you create your own budget. So same way, like thinking of dividing out roles and responsibilities and knowing who is responsible for what task along the way is the exact same thing we do in a grant. So it's not anything new to us. It's just things that we do that we have to actually apply it to our work groups and to our teams. Okay, so communication matters because it helps us avoid duplication of work and ensuring consistency. Poor communication often leads to redundant efforts, such as multiple team members working on the same sections or producing conflicting data. A centralized communication system prevents the overlap of responsibilities, inconsistent messaging or formatting across the proposal, and it also creates a good team working environment. Okay, building strong relationships with funders through clear messaging. Your upfront communication amongst your team actually does impact how you write and have clear messaging for what you're trying to say to your funder. Funders value organizations that demonstrate clarity, professionalism, and shared vision for the project. Clear internal communication helps teams articulate their goals effectively in applications, and it ensures consistency across all interactions from emails to presentations. You get to decide early on how you're going to communicate with your funders, but it also starts at how are you communicating with the team that works with you. So we've kind of talked about why communication matters. Well, let's talk about some of these roadblocks that come along the way. So some of your roadblocks are going to be misaligned expectations, inconsistent updates on progress, inefficient tools or unclear processes, lack of feedback or delayed reviews, and overlapping responsibilities causing confusion. And I feel like you're probably looking at this slide being like, well, duh, Allison, this is just common sense. Of course, these things are going to be roadblocks along the way. So let's talk about them. Let's get it out there and let's figure out the solutions to these roadblocks, right? So misaligned expectations. When your team members are unclear about their roles, deadlines, or the goals of the grant proposal, it can lead to misunderstandings and delays. I feel like in every project, there is some type of misunderstanding and delay. But like I said, we've got a finite time. We don't get to push deadlines. We don't get to move things along. We really have to ensure that misaligned expectations do not impact the end result. And having clear communication up front is going to help solve that problem. So, for example, writers might expect researchers to provide data by a specific date, but researchers may not be aware of that deadline or the data's importance for the proposal. If you don't have clear expectations, no one knows when they're supposed to do what and when it needs to be turned in. So the impact of that on the work that you're going to do is you have decreased team morale because, you know, it's the most annoying thing ever to sit and wait and wait and wait or not be communicated back from someone about a hang up that they're having, right? You're going to have frustration as a team member, and you might end up working toward different objectives or missing the deadline. How many of us have worked in an environment that we walk away going, what did I just do? Or are we going to meet this goal? And why do I feel like I'm the only person pulling the weight? I know I was not a group work person in my education life. I could not stand it because I couldn't control the outcome, right? I couldn't control who was doing what and when and all of these things. And of course, as high schoolers and early college students, time management and work plans and roles and responsibilities were not common themes in my life. And so knowing now that these things work, right? We can set these expectations up front that will help us with misaligned expectations. So the solution to this roadblock, it is going to be to set regular meetings so you can clearly align your expectations every time you meet. You're going to have clear written agreements on roles and responsibilities and deadlines from the start. And we'll dig into essential tools and stuff that help drive to that success and to that solution in just a minute. Okay, another roadblock is inconsistent updates on progress. Team members may fail to communicate their progress regularly, leading to gaps in the overall project timeline. So if you are not giving consistent updates on where you're at, the next person who's in line to do their task may not know when it is due. I think of us as a team at Boyd Grants, all of our stuff is lined out. All of our work plan is lined out in Asana, and we will talk about that tool in the next few slides. But Each task has someone assigned to it. And in that task is the expectation of how that task will be completed. And so there is no miscommunication of what someone's role is, right? And also that task has a deadline. So in order for the next 5 tasks to happen, this very first task has to be completed. Okay. So if I finish my task early, but I don't move it along and I don't give an update or progress, the person that is waiting on me will not know. And so if we can't have a consistent update of where we're at in our workflow, then it is going to cause further delays and frustrations for others who rely on that section or that piece of research or whatever that step was. In order to solve that, you have many ways you can solve that. I just talked about how we solved that, and that's by using Asana. But a simple way is to have daily or weekly check-ins, depending on your school of thought. We manage projects differently between in-house projects and then grant projects and management projects or whatever. But in-house for projects, I try to send an email to my team once every other day. Hey, where are you at? Give me the status. What do you need from me to help you complete your goal? So we kind of have mishmashed a couple of these different solutions. And that's what I want you to know is you do what works for you as long as you over communicate to your team what your plan is, right? It can't change from time to time. It really has to stick to creating a policy, procedure, and a process, right? Okay, so daily or weekly check-ins, depending on your project size, that's going to determine how many you need to have in a week or even in a month. You're also going to use that to ensure consistent progress on your reporting. So I kind of jumped in early and talked about my tool that we use is Asana, but there's other tools like Asana or Trello, and those track tasks and update in real time. Another common roadblock is inefficient tools or unclear process. Man, when a process is so unclear, we don't use it. It's the theory that bad data in equals bad data out, right? So if we have a very poor process that hasn't been written out and it hasn't been implemented consistently, then that is not going to help us move past the communication block that we have. So if your grant writing team uses both email and Google Docs, but doesn't establish the process in which you're going to email and reference Google Docs or version control or whatnot, you're going to confuse your versions and you're going to confuse kind of the next steps and who's doing what. There are simple solutions to that. But the impact is really going to delay your team, and you're going to struggle with finding files. You're going to struggle with what's the most current, things like that. So the solution is that you're going to adopt an all-in-one platform for file sharing. So we use Google Drive. That works for us. Other people use whatever else they use, but Google Drive works for us. It doesn't mean it's the perfect thing. But the only way something file sharing works is if you have a standardized level of versioning or how you want your file naming conventions to be. And we have instituted that here, like with the year, the date, the year, month, date, the name of the project, the client name, and the writer. And so once that's been updated, it's updated by year, month, date. And so we know the date determines the newest version. And that works for us. So standardizing how communication and feedback should be handled within each tool is going to help you also. In Asana, you leave comments along the way in your tasks, and we use that more than we use email because the comments are tied directly to that project and that specific task, and anyone on that team can pick it up and go, okay, they struggled with this. This is this is how they were able to solve that problem. Oh, we got the data from the client late, things like that. And so then the next person in the line for the task is able to know exactly what is expected of them. The next common roadblock is lack of feedback or delayed reviews. If feedback is not timely or structured properly, it can lead to poor quality grant proposals or missed revisions that could have improved your submission. If you have a reviewer on deck, right, they may delay their feedback because they assume others are going to give it. So if you haven't assigned who your reviewer is, then everyone's going to do oh, I thought someone else was going to do that. Or the writer might not know where to ask or who to ask for clarification of whether or not they met all the expectations or whatever you're reviewing off of. So the proposal in the end may be rushed or incomplete. There might be key elements that have been overlooked or underdeveloped. But how do you solve that, right? We can have all the roadblocks in the world, but if we don't have a solution, we can't move forward. This is where setting clear deadlines for feedback and review cycles are imperative. This is where having a system set up in Google Docs for real-time collaborative feedback, or a task set up in Asana or Trello or Monday or whatever product you decide to use, or Excel, whatever you use. Having that task set up to move it from the next step to the next, to the next, to the next is going to be helpful. The next common roadblock is overlapping responsibilities can cause confusion. So when roles and tasks aren't clearly defined, team members may unknowingly work on the same sections or overlook sections that someone else assumed they would handle. For example, if both a writer and a researcher are working on the background section of the proposal without realizing one is doing it, you're doing the same thing and you're duplicating your efforts, which can also lead to inconsistent information. The duplication of work or contradictory information in the proposal can cause a problem in the long run, right? So if you've got one person interpreted data one way, and then it's quoted a different way later on, and no one's reviewed it or whatnot and caught that, your reviewers are going to catch that and they're going to question and they're going to wonder what happened in this proposal. Delays as the team figures out who should revise or rework sections. So if you don't have a clear or you've overlapped that responsibility, it's kind of like who's on first, what's happening, who's doing what, who is going to take responsibility and ownership. So defining and communicating roles clearly from the beginning is imperative. You're also going to make sure that you create a task management chart or a project plan to ensure everyone knows what they're responsible for. Okay. We kind of alluded to some tools that my team uses. If you use something else, drop it in the chat and we can talk about it at the end of this. Okay. So project management tools. I personally like Asana because I've been using it forever. And I'm kind of one of those people, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Is that the right saying? Something like that. Okay, so Asana works for us because it's task management. We can break down each task that is required for writing or for project management or for management of the actual award. And we can do it by the grant. We'll have each individual task, and then underneath that grant is filed underneath a client name. And so we use Asana in that way to help track and complete tasks efficiently. Some of the features that it includes are timelines, due dates, task prioritization, and project workflows. When our team was developing the tasks, you almost had to be like, what step one to grant writing, what do we do before we get narrative information? What do we do? That has helped us kind of really clearly define how our team works well with each other and what role is assigned to what task. Every team looks different, so you're going to have to decide, like, have a meeting of the minds. What do you expect of your subject matter experts? What do you expect of your writers? What do you expect of your finance team? Whoever touches part of the grant, whether it's pre-award or post-award, you're going to kind of flesh out what their tasks are, and you can feed that into Asana. This really helps our team stay on top of deadlines and aware of key milestones. Trello. I do not use Trello. So my opinion of Trello is I don't have one, but it is a similar thing to Asana. It's a flexible visual tool. It uses boards, lists, and cards to organize tasks. That's just not how I'm not that type of a visual person, so it doesn't work for my team. It is ideal for tracking progress on specific sections of a grant application and ensuring transparency. It offers simple drag and drop functionality for moving tasks along the workflow. And then there's kind of a Grant Holster is a great company that has they have the capability of doing some task management along the way, and it's similar to both Asana and Trello, but of course it's like for great people, right? And it's not really shifting from Asana, which is almost a sales project management when it started, and now it's whatever type of project management you want to do. So anyway, if you're looking to support like-minded grant people, Grant Holster is a great one for project management. Okay, so communication platforms: Slack, Microsoft Teams. I don't know if it's called Google Hangouts anymore, but maybe Messenger. I don't know. So how do you communicate quickly? And we on our team use Asana comments for that, or we text a lot too. But if you want to have a communication tool, Slack is one that integrates into a lot of other platforms that you can use. It allows for the creation of dedicated channels for specific topics. So you could have one that is only a Slack only related to grant budgets. You could have one that is related per project. You could have one, you can set it up however you want. You can integrate, it integrates with other tools like Asana, Google Docs, Gmail, things like that. And it provides seamless communication across different platforms. It also supports direct messages, group chats, and file sharing. You're just going to have to decide internally what works for y'all. We are not a instant messenger type. Man, that just kind of dated myself. We're not that type of group. We use tools that are within tools we already have. So, such as, like, we don't use Microsoft Teams, but many of the organizations we work with do. And so we are often tied into some of their chat features and things like that. But Microsoft Teams is ideal for larger organizations or teams that already use Office 365. It offers a combination of chat, video conferencing, and file sharing all in one app. If you set it up right and use it well, it's great to use to group those different teams together, teams of individuals, and then the exact files that are tied to that development. It also supports integrations with SharePoint and other Microsoft tools, making it a comprehensive hub for team collaboration. It's really great for quick communication, reducing reliance on emails for internal matters. All right, so the next one is document collaboration. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about live collaboration within documents, but if you're going to do that, and if that's the option that you want to use, please create some type of policy or process that allows for strong version controls. So on our team, we use Google Docs for like team meeting notes and stuff like that. But we do not do Google Docs for drafting grant proposals and everyone working together in there, because we have found that version control is hard for that, just for our team. Now, it doesn't work in the way that we process, But if your team has a system set in place and y'all enjoy the going back and forth and that live writing together, Google Docs is a great place to do that because you can integrate your comments, you can feed back and forth off of that. Your changes are automatically saved and versioned so everyone can track edits and updates. And I get to say this because I'm the business owner, right? So I like to make sure that our first draft is one draft, like, and then we make comments and changes off of that. And now that is the second draft. And so we version control differently than how you would with Google Docs, but it's possible and you can do it. It's just completely your choice. Okay, SharePoint. I have worked in SharePoint in the past in my previous life of working like in actual groups of people for college districts and whatnot, but it's been a minute. So SharePoint obviously is a document management system within the Microsoft ecosystem, and it enables your team to store, organize, and collaborate on files. It allows for structured file organization and easy sharing of documents within a secure, permission-controlled environment. It is ideal for teams using Microsoft products for project management, and it integrates with Teams and OneDrive. So like Google Docs, you can have real-time collaboration, which makes it easy to work together, even when team members are in different locations. Regardless of whether you use SharePoint, Google Docs, whatever type of document collaboration system you want to do, it's only going to be as successful as the processes you put into place. So you have to pre-think these things. You can't just sit there and go, oh, let's do Asana. Let's grab SharePoint, and that's what we're going to use as our document collaboration. No, create your processes of what works. So like I was saying, we internally said, oh, well, we're not a fan of that. And so we would like to have a little bit different versioning and version control. So our team knows the version control, and we send it out a couple of times a year just as a reminder of, hey, don't forget, this is how you save things and things like that. So it's completely up to you how you want to use these tools. They're tools, right? They're resources for us to use in the future. There are things that we can think about. There are things that we can figure out what makes our team work better. But as long as you have a process written and in place, then they will be successful and help more than harm. Okay, so email management. This is like templates and scheduling tools. We use email management for communicating with our clients. So every email that we send out to a specific client will have in the subject header, client name, and then the project it's related to. And after that, if there's a pre-templated, like we're kicking off the grant writing process, here are the things that we need, we use a template to make sure that we are telling the same story over and over and over again. Even with communication between our internal team, if it's about work for a specific client, it's the same thing. Client name in the subject header, and then the topic. Because then as a team, we can say, hey, I sent you that email on this date, and all I have to do is search by the client. And I'm able to pull that really, really quick. So pre-designed templates for outreach emails, for communicating amongst your team, how you want to set that up is so much easier than creating them on the fly. I also have some preset email templates that are for like reminders of, hey, where are you at on this project? And it helps me to have it ready to go when I know that, okay, this task is due on this date. And maybe it's just someone who is notoriously slow, or they wait up to, like, when I say close of business, it's due, they send it at 4:59 p.m., right? So I will have that email prepped. If I don't see it come through on Asana or a task management system, that email template is ready to go, and I can remind them, you know, hey, this is due at this time, and please let me know what's going on. So email templates save time, and ensures your consistency in tone and messaging across all communication. They're great. They can be customized on specific requirements or updates. They can be customized per team. They can be scheduled. They're a great option to use. It kind of takes out the did I remember to send this? Did I forget to send this? What do I need to do next? Okay. Scheduling tools are important too. We schedule a lot of our emails. So if I know I need to send something by this date and I have already said, hey, I'm going to send this by this date, and I know that I'm giving them 5 days to get me information back, well, my 5th day email is already pre-scheduled and ready to send, and it's ready to go. And so I can do that in Gmail. You can use Boomerang, you can use Outlook, whatever your scheduling system is. But there is no shame in pre-scheduling emails. Just remember, if you get what you're asking for in advance of when it's due, turn off that email reminder, and it's really quick to just do. So anyway, use those tools that kind of are in the systems that you already have in place that will help you streamline your processes. Okay, so here are some protocols to keeping your team on track. We kind of talked about regular check-ins. We use a lot of Asana for that, for our regular check-ins. And then sometimes I will panic and be like, I have not seen this draft come through. And so I will email the writer who's working on something. And granted, they're within their time frame, but I know their schedule, and I'm usually like, oh, usually I see something different earlier. So weekly updates are so important. You can set them as frequent or non-frequent as you want, but the purpose is to keep everyone on the same page. And you want to ensure tasks are moving forward and any roadblocks are addressed in a timely manner. So how do you structure those? You're going to set, obviously, a regular, consistent day or time for the check-ins. If you want to pre-schedule those emails and create a template, a good thing to do is to create your email template that reminds them what the project is, what the project purpose is, and what their next steps are. And then making sure each team member reports on their progress, what upcoming tasks they have, and any issues that they're having. Because we can create all these processes and policies, but if we're not giving your team a space to say, hey, I'm struggling with finding this information, then it's not going to be helpful for them in the long run. It's just going to be another email. It's going to be another meeting. And those are not fun. No one enjoys an email that could have been a phone call, or a meeting that could have been an email. You want to keep these meetings brief but informative. And it's okay if it's not an actual meeting. It can actually be a group email with a response time required. Respond by noon today. And then if there's something that needs to be addressed, whoever needs to take ownership of it, obviously it's already been assigned, right? You can step in and help guide that discovery. Okay. So the benefit of these check-ins and pre-scheduled check-ins is to help you identify issues early on, which long-term is going to help reduce any delays that you have. It also encourages accountability and transparency, and it ensures that everyone is clear on their deliverables for the week. As a team internally, we have a Monday meeting and a Friday meeting. And so the purpose of those meetings are they're 15 minutes long. That's it. They can go longer if we need to, but for the most part, it is, what are your big tasks for this week? How can I help? Where are you struggling? And the team knows that this is their place to say, hey, we haven't gotten this information that we need, and I need someone else to step in and say they have to give it to me. And so that really helps guide and set the tone for the week. But it's up to you when you want to create those. Okay, so a best practice for this would be to use a shared document or a project management tool to track action items that you discussed in the meeting. Okay, the next protocol is clearly defining roles. And I feel like I say this a lot, but obviously If people know what they're responsible for and how they're responsible and how they're supposed to play that out, it's going to help clear up any communication issues. So having a clear role definition prevents overlap, confusion, and missed tasks. For structure, your writer might be the one who is drafting content, incorporating feedback, and revising drafts. Your researcher is probably the one gathering info, verifying sources, providing data to the writer, all of those things. Your reviewer is going to assess the drafts, they're going to provide feedback and approve the final version. You're going to define what each role is, and you might have more than these roles. This is just a high level discussion. So by having these predefined, it minimizes the miscommunication by ensuring everyone knows their specific responsibilities. It increases efficiency by streamlining task allocation, and it helps with feedback cycles. It helps to know who's responsible for the next step. Okay, so feedback cycles. That is going to be a structured cycle that ensures that reviews are timely and thorough and constructive. You want to make sure you have clear deadlines for each round of feedback. So for example, the first draft of a review is due on Thursday, and the final revisions of that draft is due on Friday. And it's clear and everyone knows when they're responsible for what. This allows enough time between drafts so you can have thoughtful revisions and thoughtful reviews. It prevents the rush of last-minute reviews to ensure the proposal is polished. It also enables focused and constructive feedback. Okay, so tips for collaborating, for seamless collaboration. Having centralized all your documents into one platform is going to help mitigate any saving incorrectly, things like that. So centralizing documents ensures that every team member has access to the latest version of the proposal and related materials. This eliminates confusion over which draft is the most up-to-date, reducing errors or duplicated efforts. It also prevents the need for email chains and scattered file locations, which can lead to missing or outdated files. Using a shared calendar for deadlines and meetings is helpful. You can use that to ensure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to important dates, especially deadlines. If you don't have access to a project management system, back when we first started, I used my calendar as my project management system. So I had basically my tasks were set as before time blocking was cool. They were time blocked out, and I knew that I needed to start a task at this time and it was due on this day. And this is how long it was going to take me to do it. So you can make this as easy or as complex as you want it to be. But by having shared calendars so we all know whose task is what and where, it helps synchronize your meetings. It helps with your progress check-ins and document reviews. Okay. This is one that can be used in many different versions and different ways. So creating a questions log to reduce redundant communication. So think about the FAQs that we read all the time and we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They're the commonly asked questions, right? Making sure that you have a space, whether it is within the tool that you use, or if it's a collaborative Word doc, or an email string, something like that, whatever your system is, a questions log serves as a centralized place to capture and answer reoccurring questions. This helps prevent team members from asking the same question multiple times and from other people getting frustrated for answering the same question. It helps maintain focus on tasks and promote self-sufficiency. Okay, the last one. Encourage transparency in progress and roadblocks. Transparency fosters trust and accountability. When everyone is aware of progress and challenges, the team can proactively adjust workflows and offer support where needed. It also enables the team to celebrate wins and provide constructive feedback when necessary. So how do we know it's working? Because a good grant person likes to track their success, right? Using metrics to assess communication effectiveness. This is important. And how do you do that? Metrics help quantify how well communication is functioning within a grant team. By tracking KPIs, the team can make informed decisions and improve workflows. So one way to do that is you can track your response times. So you're going to measure the average time taken to respond to emails, messages, or document comments, and then you're going to set a standard of what is allowable within your organization or your writing team. It helps you set your benchmarks. It creates shorter response times to improve efficiency and ensure that tasks move forward without delays. Another way that you can do this is by tracking the number of completed tasks. So how many tasks are completed on time versus delayed? Do you have a high completion rate for your task or a low completion rate? If you have a low completion rate, then you know, okay, something is going haywire on this project, or we need to reevaluate the timing we need between each task. Another one is to track the quality of grant submissions. You want to measure the quality of submissions based on factors like clarity, coherence, and accuracy. You can collect feedback from your internal reviewers, and then also once you get feedback from the funders, that also is something that you can say, hey, we got this project went well, here's the feedback we got, and you can measure based off of that. Another quality or quantitative of submissions is you can track the metrics of the number of applications awarded or if they received scored feedback, things like that. And this will show the positive trends in your communication and how it's aligned within your team. And so hopefully that will, after a while of looking at those trends, you'll lean towards producing more strong, persuasive proposals. Okay. You can also regularly review communication protocols based on your team's feedback. So at the end of every team project, at the end of every project, you can have a kind of team assessment. What went well, what didn't, how to make it better in the future. We reevaluate our processes once a year to make sure that we're still on track. We note what didn't go well throughout the year. So when we have a team discussion once a year of, okay, do we need to make sweeping changes or do we just need to make little changes and tweaks? That is based off of communication between the teams, between each project. So this is super important because if we're operating off of processes that aren't working, we're just creating frustration. All right, let's jump into some of my top communication tips that are my favorite, and then we'll jump into Q&A. So, number one, over communicate in the early stages. If you set the standard up front, people know what's expected of them and the process works a lot smoother. Set boundaries for response times. So how many days, how many hours are needed between each task that you have to complete? Okay, this one is big. Celebrate successes to keep morale high. Success is not just a grant award or finalizing an entire grant project. It's actually the submissions, right? It's actually getting sections written and completed. Celebrating those successes is just as important as celebrating if you got the grant award. That keeps your team morale high, and it helps people realize that the little steps along the way are so important and just as much needed as getting the actual grant award. Okay, and so then also provide training on tools and platforms. If you're going to use a tool, teach your team how to use it. Don't expect someone to come in and know exactly what's in your brain and how you set it up. Because as I learned from hiring people on, just because I like a filing system one way and it makes sense in my head, doesn't mean that hiring someone on or bringing them onto the team that they automatically understood how and why I set something up. So if you don't provide the training, you can't expect them to be successful. Make sure that you provide training on any tools or processes that you are going to use. Okay, Brittany, I think it is time for Q&A time. So if you want to let me know if there were any questions along the way, I'm here for it.
Absolutely. We haven't gotten any questions yet, but I will leave the chat open for a little while longer. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. It was an incredible session, and I'm really glad to be here. And I hope everyone found today's discussion insightful and you walked away with valuable insights to take your grant work to the next level. I want to say a huge thank you to Allison as we're waiting on some questions to drop in for sharing your expertise and guidance with all of us today. And as a quick reminder, we will be sending you a free PDF resource along with the recording of this webinar a little later in the week. So just keep an eye out on that. That'll come via email in a few days. I don't have any questions yet, but if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat and we will get to that. I do want to do a quick reminder on our office hours. They are a great way to get additional support and ask any questions directly. If you need help with grant application or strategy, be sure to take advantage of those. You can contact us on our website for more information on our office hours. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions coming in, Allison. So
Okay.
as the last tip, if you are serious about leveling up your grant writing skills and securing more funding, I want to personally invite all of you to join the Boyd Grants Academy. If you're not familiar with that, it is the go-to resource for grant professionals who want expert guidance, exclusive trainings, and a supportive community to help you succeed. Inside the academy, you'll get things like in-depth training modules, live Q&A sessions, access to all kinds of resources that will help you in what you need. Spots are open now, so don't wait. You can just visit us at boydgrantsacademy.com to sign up and get started with the Boyd Grants Academy. All right. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. We post a lot of updates there. You'll be able to get all things grant related, new webinars, expert tips, and the latest industry insights. Thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you have a great week.